The dimly lit briefing room buzzed with tension as the alien mercenaries crowded around the holographic display. Their leader, a towering reptilian named Krith, gazed at the rotating planet with interest. His scales reflected the blue glow of Earth, casting an eerie light across his battle-hardened face. "Earth," he muttered, his voice a low rumble that commanded attention. "Our next target." A sleek, humanoid figure stepped forward, her silver skin glinting in the light. Her name was Sarah, an expert tactician and Krith's trusted lieutenant. "What's the mission, Krith?" she asked, her voice smooth yet tinged with curiosity. Krith's eyes narrowed as he manipulated the hologram, zooming in on key military installations. "High Command wants us to destabilize their military. It should be easy. Humans are fragile, after all." Sarah tilted her head, her eyes scanning the data. "I've heard they're cunning, but nothing we can't handle." Another mercenary, a bulky insectoid named Threx, chittered in agreement. "Our tech is far superior. They won't know what hit them." Krith grunted in approval. "Indeed, we land here," he pointed to a dense forest near a significant military base, "and strike swiftly. Cut off their command and control, and the rest will fall like dominoes." Sarah nodded, but a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. What if they have hidden defenses? The humans are known for their adaptability. Krith waved her concerns away. "We'll overwhelm them before they have a chance to react. Remember, our strength lies in our unity and superior firepower." The briefing continued with detailed plans, each mercenary assigned specific roles. They were a diverse group, each species bringing unique abilities to the table, united by their desire for profit and the thrill of battle. As the meeting concluded, Krith felt confident in their success. "We move at dawn," he announced. "Prepare for glory and riches." The mercenary dropships descended silently over a dense forest, their stealth technology rendering them nearly invisible to human sensors. The night was calm, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's engines. Krith signaled to his team, and they disembarked, weapons at the ready. Sarah scanned the area with her advanced optics, her eyes glowing faintly as she took in the surroundings. "Scouts report no significant resistance," she whispered, her voice carried through their encrypted comms. Krith smirked, his confidence growing. "Then let's get to work." They moved with practiced precision, spreading out through the underbrush. The forest was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. It set Sarah on edge, but she kept her focus. They were professionals, and this was just another mission. Suddenly, the underbrush exploded with movement. Human special ops units, clad in advanced camouflage suits, emerged from the shadows, weapons aimed. Their appearance was so sudden and well coordinated that even Krith was momentarily taken aback. "Hold your fire," Krith commanded, raising his hand. The humans had caught them off guard, but he wasn't about to show weakness. A human stepped forward, his face obscured by a mask. He was calm, his movements measured. "Leave now, and we'll let you live," he said, his voice steady and authoritative. Krith laughed, a deep, guttural sound. "Bold words for a weak species." The human didn't flinch. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Krith's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." Without warning, the humans launched a coordinated assault. Gunfire and plasma bolts crisscrossed the clearing, lighting up the night. Despite their superior technology, the aliens found themselves outmatched by the humans' tactical prowess and sheer tenacity. Sarah fell back, her arm grazed by a bullet. She fired back, but the humans were relentless. "Krith, these aren't ordinary soldiers," she shouted over the din of battle. Krith snarled, rallying his troops. "Regroup, we can't let them outsmart us." But the humans were relentless, their tactics precise and devastating. They moved like shadows, their every action purposeful and deadly. The alien mercenaries, despite their advanced weaponry, began to retreat, their confidence shaken. As they fell back into the forest, Krith realized the gravity of their mistake. They had underestimated their enemy, and it had nearly cost them everything. Krith's confidence was shattered as the humans launched their coordinated assault. The night was pierced by the staccato of gunfire and the high-pitched whine of plasma bolts. Amid the chaos, Krith could see his troops struggling to adapt to the humans' guerrilla tactics. Sarah, crouching behind a fallen tree, scanned the battlefield. "Krith, they're using the terrain against us," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the din. Krith gritted his teeth, his eyes darting around the clearing. The humans were a blur of motion, their camouflage suits blending seamlessly with the forest. "We need to fall back and regroup," he roared into his comms. Sarah's arm was grazed by a bullet, and she hissed in pain. She fired her plasma rifle in the direction of the attack, but the humans were already on the move, their positions ever-changing. "Krith, these aren't just regular soldiers. They're highly trained, special forces." Krith's mind raced. He had heard rumors of human special ops units, but he had dismissed them as exaggerated tales. Now, facing them in combat, he realized his grave mistake. "Regroup at the designated point," Krith ordered. His troops began to pull back, but the humans pressed their advantage. The mercenaries' retreat was chaotic, their superior technology rendered ineffective by the humans' superior tactics. As they fell back deeper into the forest, Krith found himself face to face with a human soldier. The man's face was obscured by a mask, but his eyes were visible, cold, calculating, and fearless. "You have no idea what you're up against," the soldier said, his voice calm and steady. Krith lunged, but the soldier sidestepped, delivering a precise blow that sent Krith sprawling to the ground. Before Krith could recover, the soldier disappeared into the shadows, leaving Krith with a new sense of respect and fear for his opponents. Back at their temporary base, a secluded cave hidden deep within the forest, Krith slammed his fist onto the table, the impact echoing through the cavern. "How did they do that?" he demanded, his frustration evident. Sarah, sitting on a makeshift medical bed, winced as a medic attended to her wound. "They're not just soldiers, Krith. These special ops are something else entirely. They're trained to fight in any environment, to use the terrain to their advantage." Krith paced the room, his mind racing. "We underestimated them," he muttered. "We can't make that mistake again." Threx, the insectoid warrior, clicked his mandibles in agreement. "Their tactics were impeccable. We need to adapt, or we'll be defeated." Krith stopped pacing and faced his team. "We need to reassess our strategy. Our technology is useless if we can't counter their tactics. We need to understand their methods, predict their moves." Sarah nodded. "We need intel. Detailed, comprehensive intel on their training, their strategies, and their leader, Major Reynolds." Krith grunted in agreement. "We have to hit them where it hurts. But first, we need to level the playing field." He turned to Threx. "Get our scouts out there. I want eyes on their base, on their movements. We need to know what they're planning." Threx nodded and left to relay the orders. Krith then turned to Sarah. "We need to get inside their heads. What drives them? What are their weaknesses?" Sarah looked thoughtful. "Humans are resilient, adaptable. They thrive on unpredictability. We need to outthink them, outmaneuver them. But first, we need to understand them." Krith's eyes narrowed with determination. "Then that's what we'll do. We regroup, we gather intel, and then we strike back. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Sarah sat at her console, the glow of multiple screens illuminating her silver skin. She was deep into the human communication network, her fingers moving rapidly as she bypassed security protocols and firewalls. The challenge was exhilarating, but the stakes were high. "Got something," she muttered, her eyes narrowing as she pulled up a detailed file. "These units, they're called Special Ops, specifically a division known as the Night Stalkers." Krith, standing behind her, leaned in. "What makes them so effective?" Sarah expanded the file, displaying dossiers on several key members. "They're highly trained, adaptable, and use guerrilla tactics. Their leader is Major Jack Reynolds. According to this, he's a decorated war hero, known for his unconventional strategies and ability to inspire absolute loyalty." Krith's eyes gleamed with a newfound respect. "What else do we know about Reynolds?" Sarah delved deeper. "He has a background in unconventional warfare, psychological operations, counterinsurgency. He knows how to turn the tide of a battle with minimal resources." Krith rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "We need to get inside his head. What drives a man like Reynolds?" Sarah continued to sift through the data. "He's motivated by a sense of duty and loyalty to his team. He's faced impossible odds before and come out on top. His men would follow him into hell." Krith nodded slowly. "We'll need to draw him out, Make him vulnerable. If we can isolate him, we can disrupt their entire operation. Sarah looked up, her eyes meeting Krith's. We need to be careful. Underestimating him could be our downfall. Krith grunted in agreement. Then we won't underestimate him. We prepare, we strategize, and we hit them where it hurts the most. Krith and Sarah spent hours devising a plan to draw Major Reynolds into a trap. They created false intel, planting it carefully within the human communication channels. The bait was set, a supposed weak point in their defenses, ripe for an attack. The day of the counterattack arrived. Krith's mercenaries lay in wait, their positions well concealed around the supposed weak point, a clearing in the forest near an abandoned bunker. The tension was palpable, each soldier aware of the high stakes. Sarah adjusted her optics, scanning the perimeter. No sign of them yet, she whispered. Krith remained calm, his eyes fixed on the clearing. Patience, they'll come. As if on cue, movement flickered at the edge of the forest. Human special ops units emerged, moving with silent precision. Krith's heart pounded in his chest, but he maintained his composure. This was their moment. Hold your positions, he ordered through the comms. The humans advanced cautiously, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of an ambush. Krith watched as Major Reynolds, recognizable by his stature and the way he commanded his team, led the group. Now, Krith whispered. The clearing erupted in chaos as the mercenaries opened fire. Plasma bolts and gunfire lit up the night. The humans reacted instantly, taking cover and returning fire with deadly accuracy. Krith noted their discipline and coordination. They were indeed formidable. Sarah, positioned on a ridge, took aim at Reynolds. I've got a shot, she reported. Take it, Krith ordered. She fired, but Reynolds moved just in time, the shot missing him by mere inches. He retaliated, his precision shots forcing Sarah to duck for cover. He's good, Sarah muttered, repositioning herself. Krith knew they needed to apply more pressure. Advance! Push them back! The mercenaries surged forward, but the humans held their ground, their tactics impeccable. Despite the intense firepower, the battle was not going in Krith's favor. The humans' ability to adapt and counter every move was proving too much. Krith found himself face to face with Reynolds again, the human's calm demeanor unnerving him. You can still call this off, Reynolds said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Krith lunged, but Reynolds sidestepped effortlessly, delivering a precise blow that disarmed Krith. Before Krith could react, Reynolds had him on the ground, weapon aimed at his head. You don't have to do this, Reynolds said. We can end this peacefully. Krith, beaten but not broken, looked up at Reynolds, seeing not just an enemy, but a warrior worthy of respect. Perhaps we can, he muttered, a new plan forming in his mind. Krith was taken prisoner and brought to a secure location deep in the forest. The human base was surprisingly Spartan with minimal technology, just enough to support their operations without drawing too much attention. He was placed in a reinforced cell, and a couple of soldiers stood guard outside. Hours later, Major Reynolds approached, a canteen of water in hand. He opened the cell door and stepped inside, offering the water to Krith. Why are you here? Reynolds asked, his tone even, but curious. Krith, beaten but not broken, took a long drink before meeting Reynolds' gaze. We were hired to disrupt your defenses, he said. Nothing personal, just business. Reynolds nodded, his expression unreadable. And now? Krith sighed, leaning back against the cold wall. Now I see that we've underestimated you. Your people, you're not what we thought. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. And what did you think? Krith laughed bitterly. That you were fragile, unorganized, easy targets, but you're not. You're formidable, resilient, and far more dangerous than we anticipated. Reynolds seemed to ponder this for a moment. We fight to protect our home, our people. We're not so different, you and I. Krith frowned. How do you figure? Reynolds shrugged. We both lead our people into battle. We both seek to achieve our goals. The only difference is what we fight for. Krith was silent for a long moment, absorbing Reynolds' words. And what do you propose? Reynolds leaned forward. An end to this conflict. You call off your forces and we let you leave. No more bloodshed. Krith studied the human, searching for any sign of deceit, but found none. And if I refuse? Reynolds stood up, his gaze hardening. Then we'll continue to fight, and more will die. But I believe you're smarter than that, Krith. Krith looked away, contemplating the offer. For the first time, he saw a way out that didn't involve more death and destruction. I'll need to speak with my second-in-command. Reynolds nodded. I'll arrange it. Sarah led a small team on a daring rescue mission to retrieve Krith from captivity. They moved through the forest under the cover of darkness, using their advanced technology to avoid detection. Sarah's heart pounded with anxiety, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. As they approached the human base, Sarah used her optics to scan for weaknesses. There, she pointed to a less guarded section of the perimeter. The team moved swiftly, disabling guards and sensors with precise efficiency. Sarah took point, leading them through the maze of tents and makeshift structures until they reached Krith's cell. Krith looked up as the door opened, relief washing over his face when he saw Sarah. I knew you'd come. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. We need to get you out of here. As they made their way out, an alarm sounded. Hurry, Sarah urged, her weapon ready. The team fought their way through the base, exchanging fire with human soldiers. Sarah and Krith moved as one, their trust in each other evident in their seamless coordination. Just as they reached the edge of the forest, Major Reynolds appeared, blocking their path. Krith, wait, Reynolds called out, his weapon lowered. Krith hesitated, turning to face the human. What do you want? Reynolds took a step forward, his eyes sincere. A truce. We don't have to continue this fight. Sarah looked at Krith, her eyes questioning. What is he talking about? Krith held up a hand, signaling her to wait. He's right. We've lost too much already. We need a different approach. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. Are you serious? Krith nodded. I've seen enough to know that we can't win this through brute force alone. We need to think smarter. Reynolds stepped closer, extending his hand. Call off your forces, and we can find another way. Krith looked at the human's outstretched hand, then at Sarah. She nodded, trusting his judgment. Krith took Reynolds' hand, sealing the agreement. Let's end this, Krith said, a sense of relief washing over him. Together! As they retreated back to their base, Krith and Sarah knew that this alliance would be difficult to maintain. There would be distrust and challenges ahead, but for the first time they saw a glimmer of hope for a different future, one where they could coexist rather than destroy each other. Krith made a bold decision. He contacted Major Reynolds, requesting a meeting. To his surprise, Reynolds agreed. The rendezvous was set at a neutral location, a small clearing in the forest, halfway between their respective bases. Both leaders brought a small contingent of their most trusted soldiers, creating an atmosphere of wary anticipation. The clearing was bathed in the soft light of dawn as Krith and Reynolds approached each other. They stopped a few paces apart, their entourages fanned out behind them, weapons at the ready but not aimed. Reynolds broke the silence first. You asked for this meeting. What do you want? Krith took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. A truce. We have no real quarrel with your kind. Our contract was to destabilize your military, but we've come to respect your resilience and strength. Reynolds studied Krith, his eyes searching for any sign of deception. And why should we trust you now? Krith met his gaze evenly. Because continuing this conflict benefits neither of us. We've both suffered losses. My people are mercenaries. We fight for profit, not for glory or conquest. If we can reach an understanding, we can avoid further bloodshed. Reynolds nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. I believe you, but trust is earned, not given. How do you propose we move forward? Krith glanced back at Sarah, who stepped forward with a datapad. We propose a temporary ceasefire. During this time, we will exchange information and work together to ensure the safety of both our people. If we can prove that cooperation is beneficial, we can negotiate a more permanent arrangement. Reynolds looked at the datapad, then at his second-in-command, Lieutenant Harris, who gave a slight nod. It's a start, Reynolds said, but any sign of betrayal and the deal is off. Krith extended his hand. Agreed. Reynolds shook it firmly. We'll need to meet regularly to discuss terms and progress. Let's make this work. With the truce in place, Krith and his team found themselves working alongside the humans. It was a tense and cautious collaboration, with both sides wary of each other. However, the shared goal of survival and mutual benefit slowly began to bridge the gap between them. The first joint operation was to secure a nearby supply depot that had been targeted by rogue alien factions. Krith and Reynolds co-led the mission, their troops blending into a unified force. The tension was palpable as they moved through the forest, each side keeping a close eye on the other. Sarah and Reynolds developed a mutual respect, often discussing strategies and tactics during downtime. One evening, as they reviewed a map of the area, Sarah spoke up. "Your tactics in the last engagement were impressive. You anticipated our moves perfectly." Reynolds smiled slightly. "Years of training and experience. Your tech is impressive too. Those cloaking devices could be game changers." Sarah nodded. "Perhaps we can share some of our technology in exchange for training on your tactics. It would benefit both our forces." Reynolds considered this. "I'll bring it up with my superiors. It's worth discussing." As days turned into weeks, the alliance began to solidify. Joint patrols became routine, and both sides started to see the benefits of working together. Trust, while still fragile, grew stronger with each successful mission. One night, around a shared campfire, Krith and Reynolds found themselves talking about their respective cultures and backgrounds. "Back home," Krith began, "we're seen as mercenaries and warriors. But we have families, communities. We're not so different from your kind." Reynolds nodded. "We fight to protect our home and loved ones. It's the same for us. Maybe that's why we're able to work together now." Krith looked thoughtful. "Perhaps there's a lesson in this, that even enemies can find common ground." Reynolds raised his canteen in a toast. "To a new beginning, then." Krith clinked his own canteen against Reynolds. "To a new beginning." Despite the progress, there were still moments of tension and mistrust. Some soldiers on both sides found it difficult to forget the battles they had fought against each other. But the leadership of Krith and Reynolds, their growing friendship, and the undeniable benefits of their alliance slowly began to change minds. The combined human-alien force prepared for their next major challenge, knowing that their success would depend on their ability to trust and work together. It was an uneasy alliance, but it was one that held the promise of a better future. Just as tensions between the humans and Krith's mercenaries began to ease, a new threat emerged on the horizon. Reports came in of a rogue alien faction, far more aggressive and ruthless than Krith's group, invading Earth with the intent to conquer and enslave. Krith received the news through a secure communication channel from one of his scouts. The image on the screen showed a fleet of heavily armed ships descending towards the planet, their insignia unmistakable. "This isn't good," Krith muttered, turning to Sarah and Reynolds, who stood beside him. "These rogues have no interest in negotiation. They're here to dominate." Reynolds, scanning the reports, nodded grimly. "If we don't stop them, they will destroy everything in their path. We need to act fast." The human-alien alliance quickly mobilized, setting aside any lingering distrust in the face of this greater threat. Strategy meetings became a daily occurrence, with both sides sharing intelligence and resources to prepare for the impending invasion. The combined human-alien force worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses and prepare for the battle ahead. Krith and Reynolds coordinated their troops, blending their tactics into a formidable strategy. "We'll need to hit them hard and fast," Reynolds said, standing over a large tactical map spread out on a table in the makeshift command center. "No mercy. They won't give us any." Krith nodded in agreement. "Agreed. Our strength lies in our unity and our ability to strike unexpectedly. We'll use the element of surprise to our advantage." Sarah, who had been studying the enemy's movements, pointed to several key locations on the map. "Their primary landing zones are here, here, and here. If we can disrupt their initial assault, we can buy ourselves time to mount a counter-offensive." Lieutenant Harris, Reynolds' second-in-command, added, "Our best bet is to divide their forces. If we can lure them into traps and stretch their lines, we can weaken them." Krith's eyes gleamed with determination. "We also need to protect the civilians. If they target population centers, it will be a massacre." Reynolds nodded, his jaw set. We'll deploy teams to key locations to provide cover and evacuate non-combatants. Every life saved is a victory. As the day of the invasion approached, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of fear and resolve. Soldiers from both sides trained together, sharing techniques and learning to rely on one another. Bonds were formed in the crucible of their shared mission. The night before the battle, Krith addressed his troops. Tomorrow, we face an enemy unlike any we've encountered. They are ruthless, but we are stronger because we stand together. Fight not just for survival, but for the future we can build together. Reynolds gave a similar speech to his men. We've trained for this. We've faced death before and come out stronger. Tomorrow we fight not just for Earth, but for our new allies. Together, we will prevail. The soldiers cheered, their spirits lifted by the unity and determination of their leaders. At dawn, the combined force took their positions. The air was thick with anticipation. They watched as the rogue alien ships descended from the sky, darkening the horizon. Krith, Sarah, Reynolds, and Harris stood at the forefront, ready to lead their troops into battle. As the first enemy ships touched down, the Alliance sprang into action. Explosions rocked the battlefield as traps were sprung and heavy artillery fired upon the invaders. The initial chaos of the invasion was met with a well-coordinated and ferocious defense. Krith led a daring assault on one of the enemy's primary landing zones, his troops moving with a blend of human strategy and alien ferocity. Sarah provided crucial intel, guiding them through the chaos and ensuring their attacks hit critical points. Reynolds and Harris coordinated the defense of a major city, using their tactical acumen to outmaneuver the enemy and protect civilians. The human-alien teams worked in unison, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared goal. The battle raged on, with both sides suffering heavy losses, but the Alliance's unity and resilience began to turn the tide. The rogue invaders, unprepared for such a fierce and coordinated defense, started to falter. Krith, Reynolds, Sarah, and Harris knew the fight was far from over, but they could see the impact of their efforts. They had bought precious time, and with it, the hope of ultimate victory. The rogue aliens descended upon Earth with terrifying force, their ships darkening the sky and casting long shadows over the land. The air was filled with the roar of engines and the shriek of atmospheric entry. Krith and Reynolds stood together on a hilltop, overseeing the battlefield as their combined forces braced for the onslaught. "Here they come," Reynolds said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Krith nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "Remember, we fight as one, no hesitation." The first wave of enemy ships landed with deafening crashes, disgorging hordes of heavily armed alien soldiers. They were met with a hail of gunfire and plasma bolts from the Alliance forces, who had fortified their positions and set numerous traps. Krith led the charge on the western flank, his troops following him with fierce determination. Plasma bolts and bullets flew in all directions as they clashed with the enemy. The battle was brutal and chaotic, but Krith's leadership and the training they had received from the humans began to show results. Sarah, positioned on a ridge, provided crucial sniper support, picking off key targets and relaying enemy movements. Her calm precision under fire was a cornerstone of their defense. Meanwhile, Reynolds and Lieutenant Harris commanded the defense of the eastern sector. The human soldiers, using guerrilla tactics and advanced maneuvers, managed to hold their ground despite being heavily outnumbered. The bond forged between the human and alien troops in the weeks leading up to this battle was evident in their seamless coordination and mutual trust. "Reynolds, we need support on the northern front," Harris called out, scanning the battlefield through his binoculars. Reynolds nodded, issuing rapid orders through his comms. "Alpha and Bravo teams move to reinforce the northern line. Engage and hold. We can't let them break through." The northern front was under heavy attack, but the arrival of the reinforcements turned the tide. The Alliance troops fought with renewed vigor, pushing back the invaders step by step. Krith, noticing the shift in battle dynamics, decided it was time for a bold move. "We're going to take the fight to their command ship," he announced to his elite squad. "Cut off the head and the body will fall." The assault on the enemy flagship was a daring and dangerous operation. Krith led his elite team through the thick of the battle, dodging enemy fire and overcoming numerous obstacles. Sarah provided cover from a distance, her sniper rifle taking out threats before they could react. As they approached the massive enemy ship, the fighting intensified. The flagship's defenses were formidable, but Krith's team moved with precision and purpose. They breached the outer defenses and made their way inside, the corridors echoing with the sounds of battle. "Move quickly," Krith urged, his voice steady. "We need to disable their command center." Sarah, using her advanced optics, led them through the maze-like interior of the ship. "This way," she directed, her eyes fixed on a holographic map. They encountered fierce resistance, but their training and determination saw them through. Room by room, they fought their way towards the command center. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and the cries of battle. Finally, they reached the heart of the ship. The rogue alien leader stood before them, a towering figure with an aura of menace. "You think you can defeat me?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Krith stepped forward, his weapon raised. "Your reign of terror ends now." The battle was intense, a brutal clash of wills and skills. Krith's team fought valiantly, each member contributing to the fight with everything they had. Sarah's precision shots, Krith's raw strength, and the unwavering courage of their comrades made them a formidable force. In the end, it was a combined effort that brought the rogue leader down. Krith delivered the final blow, his weapon striking true. The leader fell, and with him, the morale of the invading forces crumbled. Outside, Reynolds and his troops continued their relentless defense. The news of the rogue leader's death spread quickly, causing confusion and disarray among the invaders. The Alliance forces seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated counteroffensive that drove the enemy back. As the sun began to set, the battlefield quieted. The invaders, now leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Krith and Reynolds stood together once more, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and relief. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice filled with pride. Reynolds nodded, a weary smile on his face. "Together." The victory was hard-won and came at a great cost, but it was a testament to what could be achieved when former enemies united against a common foe. The alliance between Krith's mercenaries and the human forces had turned the tide, not just of the battle, but of their understanding of each other. As they tended to the wounded and began the long process of rebuilding, Krith and Reynolds knew that this was just the beginning. They had forged a new path, one that held the promise of peace and cooperation in the face of adversity.